It's the new version of an old problem, a growing threat of a government shutdown.
I've no illusions. I've been doing this for 10 terms, and I've seen this movie before.
We talked to two Texas congressmen on opposite sides of the fight to keep the government running, why it's happening again, and what comes next. Abortion, immigration, energy. Donald Trump and Kamala Harris lay out their contrasting ideas on the debate stage, how their positions could have a distinct impact on Texas. The need is great, but Texas falls short in meeting the need for mental health care.
The ability for somebody to have access to mental health care is often the difference with life and death.
We look at who's sounding the alarm and what's happening now to recruit the psychologists of the future.
Produced from the Capitol in Austin and airing statewide, this is the award-winning State of Texas.
Hello and thank you for joining us. I'm Ryan Chandler, in for Josh Hinkle. Well, here we go again. Lawmakers in Washington need to reach an agreement on a stopgap spending bill to avoid a government shutdown. The bill is also known as a continuing resolution, or a CR. The deadline is 2 weeks away and still there's no sign of a deal. Former President Donald Trump is pushing House Republicans to attach the spending bill to a measure called the SAVE Act. That's a bill requiring proof of citizenship to register to vote. Opponents say that could make it more difficult for people like college students to register. House lawmakers were supposed to vote Wednesday on legislation pairing the spending bill with the SAVE Act, but Speaker Mike Johnson pulled the vote as it became clear the plan did not have the votes to pass. Our team in Washington spoke with Texas Congressman Michael McCall about what's at stake and the path forward.
I voted for the SAVE Act. It basically says, like, under federal law, you have to be a legal citizen to vote, and it tries to enforce that at the state level. There's a lot of loss of faith in our elections, and something like this, I think, would give people more confidence. Having said that, I've no illusions. I've been doing this for 10 terms, and I've seen this movie before. And so I think the opening salvo will be the SAVE Act and the CR. I don't think that will survive the Senate. And then we're going to go back to, do we shut down the government or not? And I've never been a fan of that because that doesn't accomplish really anything. And at the end of the day, it hurts our military more than anything. And so does a CR, by the way, which I don't like. It will probably be a short-term CR extension is my guess.
Through the end of the year? Or
well, that's going to be the big debate. Is it going to be the end of the year, or is it going to go into next year with the hope that maybe we'll have a different administration?
You don't know which one?
I don't have a crystal ball. That's how I see it progressing.
That's one view of the path forward, but we want to go a little deeper with someone on the other side of the aisle. Texas Congressman Lloyd Doet serves on both the House Ways and Means Committee and the Budget Committee, so some very interesting perspective. Thank you so much for joining us.
So good to be with you.
You know, we have seen these fights over budgets and shutdowns for decades. You've been in the House for 3 decades. Why does this keep happening?
Well, some feel it's to their advantage to threaten to shut down everything in order to get their way. And we've had one after another, and these shutdowns have been led by Republicans every time that they've occurred. This particular one is really ridiculous. Here we are without the appropriations bills passed, and the claim is that if we will just add this provision about citizenship, that everything will go along okay. Let me explain exactly what this SAVE Act does. It does not apply just to immigrants. It applies to all of us. If you don't have your birth certificate, if you don't have a passport, it's not good enough to use the real ID that gets you through airport security. You won't be able to vote. That's what they're insisting on weeks before the election is supposed to begin. That will cause chaos, and maybe that's what the objective is. And keep in mind that the United States House of Representatives is really Donald Trump's house. Nothing happens there without his blessing or approval. He is the one pushing this because he pushes the myth, and it is a myth, that Democrats are busing people illegally to come vote and prevent his election. It's against federal law and has long been for illegals to vote here, and it's not happening. Ken Paxton has searched all over the state, and he hasn't been able to find an example of people improperly entering the country and voting.
Right, and we should note that non-citizen voting is already illegal and vanishingly
Absolutely.
rare. But that point kind of goes both ways. If it's already illegal and meant to combat a problem that is almost non-existent, is it worth shutting down the government in order to stop the SAVE Act?
Well, if the SAVE Act were adopted today, it would disrupt this election. Think about the millions of people in Texas and around the country. It applies everywhere. That if you don't have your birth certificate handy, if you don't have a passport, how do you show that you are a citizen of this country? It's not good enough to give them a driver's license anymore or a normal form of identification. So what we will have is disrupted voting for no good purpose other than to satisfy Donald Trump's demand.
Where's the room for compromise here?
There is no room for compromise on the SAVE Act because we cannot afford any more chaos in our elections than we may have anyway. As far as keeping the government open, I agree completely with Congressman McCall that what we need is a short-term continuing resolution that simply keeps the government operating. And I also agree with him that even having a continuing resolution is an indication of the failure of this Republican Congress.
You heard Congressman McCall describe this stage of negotiations as just the opening offer. But do you think that the government should or will shut down if Republicans do not back off from insisting on the SAVE Act?
I'm hopeful that they will not. I think Donald Trump wants a government shutdown and has said as much if he can't get his way. I hope that eventually what will happen is there is another body, the United States Senate, that they will go on, and they have bipartisan support there, approve a continuing resolution and send it to the House, and that the Speaker will let us vote, because there will be a strong bipartisan majority for what we call a clean continuing resolution. The disadvantage of a continuing resolution is it's putting in place last year's funding without any adjustments for needs at the Defense Department or elsewhere. And our federal officials in national security, as Mike mentioned, and elsewhere, don't have any certainty of how they're going to handle the rest of the year. Hopefully, a short-term, clean, continuing resolution will get this job done before Christmas.
Congressman Doggett, so many things that I want to keep asking you about in this very busy time, but I'm sure we'll get another chance before the election to break all this down. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for this opportunity. Great to see you.
From abortion to immigration and policies for oil, gas, and renewable energy, we dig into the debate and what Harris and Trump had to say about issues with a distinct impact on Texans.
Ultimately, what I think we all want is for our crime victim survivors to be taken care of.
Our ongoing investigation into the state's Crime Victims Compensation Fund gets new attention at the Capitol. The action from lawmakers to fix the problem we exposed. Texas falling short when it comes to meeting the need for mental health care. We look at the work now underway in the state to recruit the psychologists of the future.